Welcome to True Reddit Reads. Today episode we cover family drama series. Opie is telling their story online. Story 1. My aunt tried to control my life, so I finally stood up. I am 23 years old female. I never expected to confront my aunt in front of my entire family. I'm the quiet one, the one who avoids drama. But when she tried to take over every part of my life, my choices, my friends, my future, I realized something. Being quiet was exactly how she controlled me. So I finally stood up. And my aunt, who always believed she was untouchable, finally got exposed. Hey Reddit, I honestly don't know whether this is an AITA event or a finally grew a backbone moment, but here's what happened. My aunt, let's call her Aunt Linda, has always been loud. Like, extremely loud. She walks into a room, and suddenly everyone is walking on eggshells. She's the type of person who thinks being older automatically means she's always right, even when she's very wrong. Growing up, she wasn't my guardian, she wasn't my caretaker, but she acted like she owned me. She'd comment on everything. What I wore, who I talked to, my grades, what I should study, how I should behave, how I should speak to adults. At first, I thought she was just being family. But as I got older, it became clear it wasn't love, it was control. Everything exploded this year. I had just gotten accepted into a college I actually wanted. A great school with a program I love. My parents were excited. I was excited. Everyone was happy. Except Aunt Linda. She said the school was too far. It was 3 hours away. She said the major was a bad choice. Graphic design. She said it wasn't a real profession. Then she dropped the real reason she was angry. I didn't raise you to make decisions like this. Aunt Linda didn't raise me. At all. She watched me for one summer when I was 12, and she's never let it go. But she kept repeating, "You owe me. I guided you. I shaped you. I know what's best for you." It made me feel like she believed I belonged to her. Like my whole life was a debt I could never finish paying. So fast forward. My family planned a small dinner to celebrate my college acceptance. Good food, good vibes. Until Aunt Linda showed up. She walked in with this dramatic sigh, like she was entering a courtroom. She didn't congratulate me, didn't smile. She went straight to, "Well, I hope you're ready to decline that college offer." Everyone at the table froze. I asked, "Why would I decline? I already accepted." And she said, "Because I've found a better path for you." She then pulled out a folder with printouts of a completely different college, in a completely different state, with a completely different major that she chose. She said she already talked to the admissions office on my behalf. I was stunned. My family was stunned. I told her respectfully, "Thank you, but I'm not changing my decision." And that's when she lost it. She accused me of being ungrateful, disrespectful, irresponsible, too immature to choose my own path. Then she said the line that changed everything. "You listen to me. I am the authority in this family." My mom immediately said, "Linda, no you're not. She's our daughter." But Aunt Linda ignored her and kept going. "I've invested too much in this child to let her throw her life away." Invested what? She bought me a backpack once in middle school. Then she looked directly at me and said, "You will decline. I won't let you destroy your future." That's when something snapped inside me. The years of comments, the pressure, the guilt trips, the manipulation, the stress. I realized she only had control because I kept letting her talk over me. So, for the first time in my life, I raised my voice. I said, loud and clear, "Aunt Linda, stop. You don't get to control me. You never raised me. You don't make my decisions. And you don't own my life. I'm choosing my school. I'm choosing my major. And I'm choosing my future, not yours." The table went silent. Her face turned red, like she wasn't used to being talked back to. She stuttered and said, "You're making a mistake." And I said, "Then it's my mistake to make." My dad stepped in and said, "Linda, enough. This ends now." You do not control our child. My aunt stood up, grabbed her purse dramatically, and said, "If you walk away from me, then don't expect my help ever again." And I replied, "I never asked for your help." She gasped like I slapped her. Then she stormed out. The next day, the family group chat was on fire. Some relatives were saying, "She needed to hear it. She's been controlling for years." Finally, someone stood up to her. Others said I should apologize because she's older. I didn't apologize. Not then. Not now. Because for the first time, I actually felt free. No more guilt. No more manipulation. No more pressure to please someone who didn't respect me. I went to the college I chose. Started the program I loved. Made new friends. Found confidence in my own decisions. And the best part? Without her controlling everything, I realized I'm actually capable of a lot more than I thought. Update. Months later. Here's the funny part. My aunt eventually called my mom saying she missed me. She said, "I just wanted what's best for her." My mom replied, "What's best is you giving her space." We're polite now. Civil, but she understands one thing clearly now. I'm not the quiet kid she can control anymore. So, Reddit, did I do the right thing? Or should I have handled it differently? What would you do if a family member tried to control your entire life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Story 2. My parents forgot I existed. Here's how I got revenge. If you have watched the far, make sure to like the video. Speech balloon, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? Bell subscribe for more jaw-dropping Reddit stories. Outbox stray, and share this video with someone who loves great storytelling. I never thought one birthday could change the entire way I saw my family. But my 16th birthday did exactly that. So picture this. It's a Friday evening. I'm sitting at our dining table, staring at a small chocolate cake I bought for myself with the little money I saved from working at the library after school. The frosting was already starting to melt because the power had flickered earlier, but I didn't move it. I just waited. And waited. My parents promised they'd be home early that day. But deep down, I already knew they wouldn't be. Because they never were. Not for me. The clock hit 6 p.m. Then 7. Then 8. No texts. No running late. Nothing. By 9 p.m., it was obvious. They forgot. Again. I remember staring at that cake, thinking, maybe if I were the oldest or the youngest, maybe I'd matter. Because in my family, middle child meant invisible. And I don't mean the joking middle child syndrome you hear online. I mean literally overlooked in every possible way. I grew up sandwiched between two siblings who were basically the sun and the moon in my parents' world. My older brother, Luke, was the golden boy. Varsity football, straight A's, quiet confidence, every teacher's favorite. My parents invested everything into him. Money, time, energy, praise. Then there was my younger sister, Kayla. The baby. The princess. She could spill a whole gallon of milk, and my parents would laugh and take a picture. Meanwhile, there was me. Neutral. Quiet. Present but not really seen. I was the kid who reminded my parents of school field trips, only to hear, "Oh, that's today?" I was the kid who got forgotten at pickup more than once. I was the kid who did all my chores without being asked, not because I was obedient, but because if I didn't do them, nobody noticed until it was time to blame someone. My parents loved me, I'm sure, just not loudly. Not the way they loved my siblings. And if I'm being honest, I spent most of my childhood convincing myself that was enough. Here are a few things that define my childhood. Award ceremonies every single time. I'd tell my parents the date. Every single time, they'd forget. One year, my teacher asked where they were. I lied and said they were sick. Family photos. There is a family portrait in our hallway where I'm literally on the edge of the frame, almost cropped out. My parents didn't even realize until I pointed it out. They said, "Oh, really? Huh." School events. When Luke had a football game, the whole house mobilized. When Kayla had her dance recital, we took pictures for weeks beforehand. When I had a science fair, no one remembered to come. I had to ask my friend's mom to drive me home. Conversations, I'd try to talk about my day. Mom would interrupt. "Hold on, Luke needs help with college applications." Dad would cut in, "Kayla got an A on her spelling test." I always stopped talking mid-sentence. Nobody noticed. By the time I was 15, I learned to just stay quiet. It was easier than fighting to be heard. But the night of my 16th birthday, that was the first time it actually hurt. At 10 p.m., I finally picked up the knife and cut the cake myself. No candles. No singing. No family. Just me. As I ate a slice, I heard the front door open. My parents walked in carrying shopping bags and laughing. Mom said, "We found the cutest dress for Kayla. She had a last-minute costume party at school." Dad said, "And Luke needed new cleats for the playoff game." I just sat there quietly. It took them a full 8 minutes to notice me at the table. Mom blinked at the cake and went, "Oh, whose cake is that?" I said, "It's mine." Dad frowned. "Yours? What for?" I stared at them and said, "It's my birthday." The room went silent. My parents froze. You could literally see the color drain from their faces. Mom whispered, "Oh my God, today was the 14th? Dad said, No way. I thought, isn't your birthday next week?" They argued about which one of them misplaced the date. They apologized. They hugged me. They promised they didn't mean to forget. And I believed them. But I also didn't. Because when it happens once, it's a mistake. When it happens your whole life, it's a pattern. Later that night, I overheard something that cut deeper than anything else ever had. My mom was on the phone with her sister, my aunt, talking about Luke's upcoming football scholarship celebration. She said, "We only have 2 kids, and sometimes that feels like too much." I froze. 2 kids? 2? My aunt, confused, said, "What about your middle one? Don't you have 3? Mom laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Oh, right." I forget sometimes. They're so quiet. I don't know what hurt more, the fact that she said it or the fact that she meant it. That night, something inside me shifted. I realized I had spent years begging for scraps of attention from people who were perfectly comfortable living like I wasn't there. And I decided then, if they were going to forget I existed, I would stop trying to remind them. I wasn't going to scream for attention. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to break down to get noticed. No. I would do something better. I would build a version of myself they couldn't ignore, not because I needed their approval, but because I was done letting their neglect define me. That night, as I scraped leftover frosting off the cake plate, I made a quiet promise. You forgot me, but one day you're going to remember everything you overlooked. And that was the beginning of my revenge. Not loud, not dangerous, not harmful, just powerful, just mine. After that birthday, something inside me finally clicked. I didn't cry. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't even feel angry at first. I just felt awake. Like I had finally stepped out of a fog I didn't know I'd been living in. I realized I had spent my entire life trying to earn a seat at a table that was already full. And if there wasn't room for me, then I needed to build my own. So the morning after my parents forgot my birthday, I began what I now call my quiet revenge. Not revenge in a harmful way. I didn't want to hurt them. I just wanted them to feel the same emptiness I had felt for 16 years. Not out of spite, but because sometimes the only way people notice what they've been ignoring is when it disappears completely. I didn't slam doors. I didn't give anyone an attitude. I just stopped reminding them I existed. If Mom asked, "How was your day?" I answered, "Good," and moved on. If Dad asked if I needed anything, I said, "No, I'm okay." If my siblings complained about something, I didn't jump in to help like I used to. I became the version of myself they believed I already were. Quiet, distant, self-sufficient. But I wasn't doing it out of sadness. This time, I was doing it with intention. Instead of fighting to be seen, I let the space around me grow louder. I got a job at a small cafe 2 blocks from my school. Nothing fancy. I made smoothies, cleaned tables, and ran the register. But the paycheck? The paycheck was freedom. I stopped asking my parents for money. Stopped asking for rides. Stopped asking for supplies for school projects. I walked everywhere. If it rained, I waited it out. If it was cold, I bundled up. Every dollar I earned went into a shoebox under my bed labeled exit plan. Again, not because I was planning to run away. This wasn't about escape. It was about not relying on people who didn't even remember my birthday. School became my sanctuary, the one place where no one forgot my name. I threw myself into classes, clubs, and competitions. Teachers noticed. Classmates noticed. Counselors noticed. For the first time ever, I noticed me. And the wildest part? I started winning awards, scholarships, recognition. I kept everything. Every certificate, every letter, every ribbon in a folder I titled Things They Missed. It wasn't meant to be petty. It was meant to be evidence. Proof that I wasn't invisible, I was just ignored. It took 3 months. 3 whole months before my mom finally said something. One night at dinner, one of the few dinners I still attended, she looked at me and said, "You've been quiet lately." I shrugged. "I've always been quiet," Dad chimed in. "We just want to make sure everything's okay." But I could tell neither of them really knew what to be concerned about. It wasn't that they were emotionally tuned in, it's that my silence made the house slightly less convenient. I wasn't stepping in to help with chores, unassigned. I wasn't playing peacekeeper between my siblings. I wasn't the invisible glue anymore. They didn't know how to function without it. I didn't respond to Dad's question. I simply kept eating. Eventually, they moved on. I joined the yearbook club, the art team, the digital design club, study groups, anything to stay busy and stay away. Every day after school, I stayed until the campus closed. Then I walked to my cafe job. Then I walked home. Mom would text sometimes. "Where are you? When will you be home? Are you at school?" I answered politely but briefly. Never rude. Never dramatic. Just distant. It wasn't until the school counselor called my parents that things took a sharp turn. I remember sitting in class when Ms. Rivera pulled me aside. She whispered, "Your parents sounded confused." I asked, "About what?" She said, "About your scholarship." I blinked. "What scholarship?" She smiled softly. "The one I recommended you for. You're a finalist." My heart literally skipped. A finalist? Me? I hadn't told my parents because, well, they never asked about my grades or my goals. In their minds, all that mattered was Luke's football career and Kayla's dance competitions. Later that day, I overheard their end of the phone call through the living room speaker. "Dad, wait, our kid made what finalist list?" Counselor, the county's academic achievement scholarship. One of the top 3 students in the district. Mom, our middle child? My stomach twisted at those 3 words. They still didn't even say my name. The counselor continued, cheerful and supportive. She talked about my grades, my club work, my community service hours, my leadership contributions. She listed achievement after achievement. Things I'd done alone. Things I'd built on my own time. Things I'd won without help, guidance, or even recognition. And then my mom said the line that made the counselor pause. "Why didn't our child tell us any of this?" "Because you didn't ask. Because you wouldn't have listened. Because you forgot I existed." Later that night, Mom knocked on my door. "Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well in school?" I didn't look up from my homework. I didn't think it mattered. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. Dad appeared behind her, looking lost, like he was realizing something for the first time in his life. Dad said, "Of course it matters." And I said, very calmly, "You never acted like it." Silence. The heavy kind. The kind that means someone finally hears the words you didn't say for years. That night, as my parents walked away from my door, I heard my mom say, "Have we really been neglecting them this much?" Dad said nothing. And for the first time, I think they understood. Not the full story, not the full hurt, but they understood something was wrong. And they understood it had been wrong for a long time. And I realized my revenge, my quiet, simple, non-harmful revenge, was working. Not because it punished them, but because it forced them to see the space I once filled without asking for anything in return. They still didn't even say my name. The counselor continued, cheerful and supportive. She talked about my grades, my club work, my community service hours, my leadership contributions. She listed achievement after achievement. Things I'd done alone. Things I'd built on my own time. Things I'd won without help, guidance, or even recognition. And then my mom said the line that made the counselor pause. Why didn't our child tell us any of this?
Because you didn't ask.
Because you wouldn't have listened. Because you forgot I existed. Later that night, Mom knocked on my door. Why didn't you tell us you were doing so well in school? I didn't look up for my homework. I didn't think it mattered. She stepped back like she'd been slapped. Dad appeared behind her, looking lost, like he was realizing something for the first time in his life. Dad said, "Of course it matters." And I said, very calmly, "You never acted like it." Silence. The heavy kind. The kind that means someone finally hears the words you didn't say for years. That night, as my parents walked away from my door, I heard my mom say, "Have we really been neglecting them this much?" Dad said nothing. And for the first time, I think they understood. Not the full story, not the full hurt, but they understood something was wrong. And they understood it had been wrong for a long time. And I realized my revenge, my quiet, simple, non-harmful revenge, was working. Not because it punished them, but because it forced them to see the space I once filled without asking for anything in return. I have now moved out to my grandparents' house, and they call cruel for choosing my grandparents over them. What would you do if your parents forgot you existed and then suddenly needed you? Please drop your comment. Don't forget to like the video. Drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? Subscribe for more jaw-dropping Reddit stories. And share this video with someone who loves great storytelling. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.